Hello, I'm Jez Smith and welcome to idea number 6 from Humans Are Not Resources, 50 Great Ideas for Managing a Modern Lean Agile Workforce. Now this idea is called Tell Them They Don't Need More Headcount, because how often do you hear people say that they need more headcount, they need more resource or resources? Humans are not resources, they are people. But how often do we hear them say that? If you want to get this done quicker, if you want to get this done at all, I'm going to need loads of resources, I'm going to need loads of people, we need to throw more and more people at the problem to get things fixed. It's a pretty common conception in the workplace that the more people you have, the faster stuff goes, the more work gets done, the better stuff gets delivered. And it's a correct conception and it's a completely incorrect conception all at the same time. Because it works in certain contexts and doesn't work in other contexts. Now, we're all brought up really, implicitly or explicitly, to believe in the Henry Ford production line. You know, Henry Ford massively popularised the motor car, took it from an expensive luxury item through to a mass-produced thing, using mass production on production lines to create far more of them, far more cheaply, far more quickly, and dominated the market, and Ford became a hugely important motor car producer. And it was so successful that it's kind of become the dominant way of seeing the workplace, the dominant way of seeing the world. Because on a production line, if you add more people in, you get more output. If you have people standing at a workstation, pulling a lever and producing a widget, if you put another workstation in with another person, you'll have twice as many widgets being produced in the same amount of time. If one production line produces 1 car an hour, you put in 5 more production lines, you will have 6 production lines producing 6 cars per hour. You're getting more stuff out, which is fine. It works really, really well, this approach, in simple, sort of often manual, repeatable, non-complex work. The problem is that when you move into different types of work that are much more complex, much more uncertain, then this approach really starts to break down and the opposite actually happens. So this approach is often characterised as knowledge work, work where the person, as Peter Drucker said, the person doing the work understands more about the work than their manager does or their boss does. So on a production line, you're a worker at a workstation pulling a lever. You don't need to understand how the production line works, you just need to understand how your workstation works, and it's the boss's job to understand the entire end-to-end production line. But when you're working with complex work, and software development is a fantastic example of this, which is why you often see this example coming from the world of software development, but really anything creative can be like this. That sort of work is much more complex and much more creative and requires much more thinking to get stuff done. And one of the key elements of that whole complexity and the need for thinking is that you need to collaborate with other people. You need to communicate with them. You need to discuss things with them. You need to align with them and work together as one whole and work out how to do that together, basically. It's one of the reasons that Agile frameworks really promote team self-empowerment, is because you want to empower people to work out how to do the work themselves. You hire great people and you let them get on with it because they will probably understand the work better than you do, and they will therefore come up with much better solutions for how to deliver the work than you would. So if this communication and this collaboration is really, really important in complex, uncertain knowledge work, then as you add people in, you actually increase the communication and collaboration overhead within the organisation. So if you look at this diagram, for example, if you have 3 people in a team, then you have potentially 3 lines of communication between them, 3 different ways in which they could interact. If you then scale that up to 4 people in a team, you don't get 4 lines of communication, you actually get 6 lines of communication. Go to 5 people, it doubles up to 10 lines of communication. 6 people, you get 15, 8, for example, you get 28, all the way through to 12 people, you have 66 lines of communication. So actually, the more people you're adding in, the more complexity you're creating, the more different people there are to talk to. And it's one of the reasons we have something called Brooks' Law that says that adding more people to an already late software development project makes it later. And there's a few reasons for this. One is obviously the lines of communication increase, so the complexity increases. Who do I need to speak to about this? What are you doing over there? I didn't know you were doing that. I was doing that, wasn't I? What's going on? all of those lines of communication start to increase, and the complexity and the uncertainty actually gets worse and slows things down. But what also slows things down is the new people joining need to get their heads around the work. They need to understand this complexity and uncertainty and who to speak to about what, and what the code base is, and what the project plan is, and all that sort of stuff. So they take time out of the existing people's diaries to find out. And suddenly, rather than the existing people working at 100% and getting stuff done, they're having to put their work down and explain to someone new how everything works, essentially upskill them in what's going on. So the new person isn't adding much value right at the start. It takes them a while to ramp up. And actually what they're doing is taking value away from everyone else who is already working quite hard, stopping them so that they can be brought up to speed with what's going on. So the complexity and the uncertainty and the adding new people in and the time out of diaries all serves to slow things down when you add more people into delivery of complex, uncertain knowledge work. And what you often see in this area is a death spiral, effectively, where things are running behind schedule. So management say, right, put more people on it, throw more people at that problem, and it'll get faster. But of course it slows things down. So they look at it and go, it's got even slower now. We obviously didn't add enough people, put more people in. And they put more people in and it slows it down further, and they keep on adding more people until eventually the whole thing just becomes chaos, grinds to a halt, and nothing gets delivered. One of the things I often do when I'm brought in to work with teams and look at how to improve things is actually see if there's people we can move onto something else, there's people we can move out. Who is essential here? How can we strip back to a really small core team that can just get stuff done and move other people elsewhere out of the way, because very often it's the number of people that's slowing things down. So the experiment I would like you to try is the next time someone comes to you and says, we need more headcount, we need more people, say no. Actually have a stop and think about this and go, do you really need more people? Or is this actually going to make things worse? Is this actually going to slow things down for you? Perhaps do this empirically and say, you know, what happened when you added some more people in last time? Did it make stuff faster? It may do. I once worked on a project that was a team of 2. We just didn't have enough people. And when we got 4 or 5 people, it started to get much better. If we'd added in more than that though, it would have slowed down again. There is obviously a point at which you need a certain amount of people to get stuff done. But do this empirically, do this scientifically, and say, for each person you're adding in, is it making stuff faster or is it actually making it slower? And if it's making it slower, you can't have more headcount. We don't need more people. Often it's the job of people management and human resources people to explain this lines of communication and Brooks Law phenomenon to other people, because most people still think the workplace is a production line and more people leads to more output. It does in simple production lines. It very much doesn't in complex, creative, uncertain work like software development or marketing or many, many different areas of innovation you could think of. So I hope that was of use. If you did like this video, please feel free to click like on the video. That would be lovely. If you've got any comments or feedback on how it might work, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. Otherwise, if you really enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe to the channel. There are plenty more videos like this coming up.